Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Thanksgiving edition of Office Hours. We are blessed to be here, and I'm even more blessed to be here with my mentor, Blaine Bartlett, the amazing Blaine Bartlett at Blaine Bartlett. He's moving possibility into reality. Happy Thanksgiving, my friend.
Hey, same to you as well. Much to be grateful for.
Yes, I'm grateful to be here always. And I thought maybe we would share just for a moment before I bring our first guest on a thought of gratitude. I know every day uh, I try my best to be grateful. Saying thank you is a habit, being grateful is a skill. What is one of the things that you do to help develop that muscle, that skill set that allows us to see the glass half full, overflowing, to find the light, the love, and the lessons in everything that we do?
Yeah, well, it's something that I've been doing for years. It's a daily gratitude list. I mean, it's pretty simple. But yeah, the power of gratitude, I think, if we put it in the context of the law of attraction, law of vibration, and whatnot, it's impossible for me to be truly grateful for something I don't experience having. And I can hope and dream and that kind of stuff, but it's not the same as gratitude. Gratitude has a very specific feeling structure associated with it, and it has to do with the thankfulness of what it is that I put, that I have. That whole uh, it's not desired anymore. It's already present, and I'm grateful for the fact that it's present. So when I'm looking at the daily gratitude list, it's not just what I can see, feel, hear, and touch today. It's what I've set myself up for. Yeah, in the future, quote unquote, the future. I'm grateful that it is here today. I just haven't arrived.
You nailed it. And that's why you can see why Blaine Bartlett is my mentor, my coach, my teacher, has been for years. Always find someone who's sitting in a situation you want to be in and ask them for directions. Yeah, saying thank you, doing a list is simple, but yet we know the simple things to do are unfortunately simple not to do. Be committed as a non negotiable. And for me, in the same realm, the skill set of gratitude is how we react to fear and knowing that I am, what am I doing to interfere with it? And as we elevate our awareness to what we do to interfere with that which already exists, we have a skill set called gratitude to find the light, the love, and the lessons in everything that we're doing, the activities planned, unplanned, paid for, unpaid for, even our sleep. But that leads us to our first guest who has taken the time on Thanksgiving to be here. Now you know why we've had so many episodes, 664 to be exact, of Office Hours. And we have our friend Seye Kuyinu here with us today, an author out of Florida. Welcome, Shay.
Thank you so much. Good to see you again.
Great to see you. We appreciate you taking Thanksgiving to share with us and talk about this glorious dance. In looking at today, what a better day to talk about the thoughts and the contemplations about who we actually are and what we're doing to interfere with that. Um, Give me an idea why you use analogously dancing in order to facilitate this understanding of this journey that we are on, this grateful, glorious dance.
Thank you so much for that question. I find that in our experience of living, there seems to be a dance of duality that plays. Oftentimes, we're looking for the good and trying to avoid the bad. Where there seems to be that moving towards happiness or wanting happiness instead of sadness. There seems to be just this play of duality in our experiences, and I find that when we look at the lens in which we see these plays of duality and step outside of that, what we see is that life itself is made up of that dance of duality. And so in my book I described it as when we are too close to this left and right, what it seems like is a fight, a struggle, some resistance. It looks like two people fighting, but when we pull back, we just see that It's the divine dance.
Beautiful.
It's I love that. Yeah. The idea of a dance, there's always, I mean, if we physically look at dancing, yeah, who's leading the dance? And if you actually look at some classic dance partnerships, yeah, the male would be the one that would be typically in the lead. And you look at it and it's almost flawless. You can't really tell who's in the lead because it just flows so well. And where I'm going with this, Shay, has to do with whenever I meet somebody new that there's resonance with, and resonance is the music of existing. Yeah. Yeah. Conversation doesn't exist until I'm aware of another's presence.
Hmm.
Yeah, conversation can never begin unless I'm aware of another's presence. And that idea of conversing, being with, Rumi at one point in one of his writings, in one of his poems, said, "Out beyond the right doing and wrongdoing, there's a field, and I'll meet you there."
Hmm.
That field is the dance floor, I think.
Hmm.
So when you're actually working with your clients, and I know you're an agile coach, and so there's a lot of pragmatic components to what you do. How do you invite people into that dance when there seems to be conflict around what's desired?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One of the things that's so obvious to me is when we're to be invited to the dance, we have to step outside of the dance to see the patterns, right? And
Yeah.
so at work, for instance, when I work with I work in the corporate organization, and obviously there's going to be, where there are humans, generally speaking, there's going to be conflict. Oftentimes it's the fact that people are so embedded in the narratives, in the construct, in the ideas of themselves. And sometimes when in working with people individually, sometimes it's let's let's pull back a little bit, let's look at the table, right? Let's see what you're seeing. let's let's see what the other person is saying. So sometimes it's when we pull back, we're able to see clearly. And then when we see clearly, we can then jump back in there because we're no longer tied to just the act of pulling back gets us a little bit out of the resistance or the reactivity that we come into play. And so when we're able to look from a different perceptual position, so to say, we're able to re-engage in a way that's full of presence.
Shay, you brought up presence, but we also talk about these dualities that exist in the clear perception of the duality that creates the contextual nature of our judgment. And as we see pain and pleasure, good and evil, resistance and play, poverty and wealth, um, it is difficult to see the oneness. And you're in small circles known as a Christian mystic. Faith is a necessity when we pull back in order to facilitate seeing the oneness in the duality. The
Mm,
dance creates our capability of seeing that oneness, but yet if we don't have faith, we can't give the meaning to what we see. In fact, we'll give the meaning of pain and pleasure, good and evil, resistance and play, poverty and wealth as a duality in itself, not into the one and the oneness that's created by faith. How is it that we utilize that faith in order to step back, which I think is what you're trying to say, to see the oneness and the
hmm.
beauty and appreciation here on Thanksgiving of everything that seems to be at conflict, contrast, and in this duality that it exists in man-made constructs.
Thank you for that, David. I'm glad you brought about the topic of faith. I think in seeing this really clearly, one has to really look at who we are, or what we are. Oftentimes, our culture is pervaded with the idea that we are what we do. we're what we wear, we're the race that we embody, the people we hang out with. So sometimes we build this really we build a robe around that and we call that ourselves. But I find that when we strip all these layers of identity and we actually see who we are, we find God. And it's the same, I would say it's the same, it's the same way. When we actually search for God, we find ourselves. And so when we find ourselves, we suddenly realize that there is nobody else apart from the divine. And so we see that others are ourselves. And it's in that recognition that we understand out more than conceptually what oneness is. And I would say that that's what really real faith is. In fact, faith is the it's the journey of seeing ourselves for who we are, who we truly are.
Wow. Well, we are blessed to be friends and to have you in our neighborhood as well, Shay. Shay Kuyinu, he is my Christian mystic. He is the author of The Glorious Dance. Let us all think about on Thanksgiving. Let us contemplate about who we actually are, what we want to become, as Blaine suggests, and feel it beyond do it, say it, think it, and believe it. There is a vibration or a frequency that's called faith that is derived from the wisdom that people share, like Shay. And Shay, I want to thank you especially to join us on such a special day for Blaine and I, a day of appreciation, a day of thanks. Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Take care. All right. My man, Blaine Bartlett, it's been a crazy morning already
Oh, I
on
know. Yeah.
Thanksgiving. Mercury's in retrograde, and God is giving me many challenges to remind myself how blessed we are to be here on Thanksgiving. But people just keep showing up for us, even on the holidays.
Even on the holidays.
Jennifer Briesman is going to help create the easy in our lives. And she is here. She is the founder and CEO of the Vow app. Vow app allows us to do something that we do often, Blaine, which is host live events, conferences, concerts, meetings, even sporting events of any kind. Welcome to our Thanksgiving edition of Office Hours, Jennifer.
Good morning. How are you?
Fantastic would be an understatement. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great, and happy and healthy Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much. Yeah, health is extremely important, but nothing interfered with my health more, I have to admit, Jennifer, than putting on the oldest and biggest Super Bowl. I know people would laugh at me when I was running the Notable Sports Agency with Lee Steinberg, Sports Entertainment. We would put on, and still it exists, the oldest and biggest Super Bowl. And I wasn't joking when I told my family, friends, and associates that half of my year's effort was put forth to put on that one Super Bowl event. And, you know, I don't know what has created more interference, having three daughters that are beautiful or putting on that Super Bowl event. Technology has changed since I was CEO there. You've put on over 600 top tier events yourself. What are some of the critical issues that exist that CEO, as the CEO of Vow, that you alleviate, giving us more of what we like and taking away the things that we don't like about putting on these events?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for asking. And yes, after 20 years as an event producer, not the Super Bowl, of course, like yourself, but you know, live events, they're the fabric of our lives, right? They are the reason we get out of bed. They're the reason we leave our home. Sometimes the only reason we leave our home these days in a world where we're working from home, we're consuming so much media and entertainment from home. But nothing beats, you know, the bright lights, smell, the sweat, the cheer, the audience, the hugs, the handshakes, the heartstrings. It's what I live for.
And the ticket prices are proving that, by the way, right? They're going through the roof.
That. And not just the ticket prices, but how we consume how we create our own end-to-end guest experience, whether it is travel, airfare, lodging, where we gather for dinner, where we choose to park, what we choose to wear. There's sort of a whole consortium of decisions that we drive, that we make, that we cobble together. But to go back to your question, which is, how do we make it easier? I mean, right now we're just living. This is the one massive ecosystem that is just living with fragmentation. And to really give rise to a live event, as an organizer, I have to move through over a dozen point solutions, things that'll be familiar to you, like could be event technology, list management technology, spreadsheets, RSVP, registration, data capture, could be payment processing, ticketing, seating, venue maps, floor plans. And I have to do all these things and communicate with all the stakeholders. And so, like, if we just pull back in the macro and we think about the stakeholders, right, we've got guests, attendees, fans, participants, event goers, no matter what you and I call it, that guest, that button seat is top line revenue. The guest is the gold. That's it. There's nothing more important. And from that guest, we have a whole economy. And so when you take guests and you glue them together, we call them groups. And that group could be a sponsor, it could be a partner, it could be an agency, media. And they all get wrangled by people like you and I, all the event organizers. There's about 1 million of us. And then we're touching venues, we're touching vendors, the fleet of experts that make it all happen. And certainly on the grand scale side you are on, you're talking about, media rights, media owners, everything touching broadcast. I mean, broadcast doesn't even exist today the way we know it. Those commercials don't get what we want them to get in terms of data and analytics and brand loyalty without that button, that seat. So at Val, what we're doing is we're really making it easier for event organizers to do more through their day with less, to take back time, to save time and money. And then on the guest side, we're really co-piloting them so that they can have a more robust end-to-end experience at scale. And where those two things come together is that experience economy, which we're all living in. That's really exploding, it seems.
I hate to do this to you, but I've been a technology guy since '92, and there's so many SaaS solutions out there, and people come up with all these different nuances of SaaS. I think I'm going to call Vow the first app that's a gas solution, guest as a service. But
I
don't know if that's appropriate till after Thanksgiving dinner, but more importantly, go ahead, Blaine.
No, I like the acronym. And if Thanksgiving dinner gas is a perfect way to go. And I say the Unstoppable Foundation, we used to host for years a huge gala. And I'm just thinking about the events in the context of a gala right now. So I'm very familiar with all the moving parts. I mean, it's just the complexity is profound. And I remember, the migration from that very first one that we did, where my wife Cynthia was basically kind of ramrod. She wrote the script. She did the show notes, the show flow. I mean, all of that stuff. But then you start layering on top of that as we grew up, and we ended up hosting this gala at the Jack Canfield ended up calling it the Grammys of the or the Oscars of the self-help movement. But the point about complexity, being able to connect the dots so that the consumer experience, the guest experience, is one of absolute delight at the end. And it's at the end that I'm concerned with, because you go through ticket sales, you go through table coordination, getting in the room, registration, just the whole physical logistical flow. How have you, and this is a how question, with Val, and I'm an event planner,
Sure.
what do I have in my hand, just pragmatically? What do I have in my hand that helps minimize the complexity that I'm faced with?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Very straightforward. All of the tools in our toolbox are interconnected. So if you make a change in one place, it makes a change in all the places. So if I click and drag, you've got BlackRock, let's say they're a sponsor at your event. and they have a table, maybe they have 2 tables, maybe they have a section of 50 seats. If I click and drag them, everybody will be updated in real time. So not only will their movement from, let's say, table 1 to table 2 be reflected on all of their dynamic tickets in real time. So I'm not reissuing tickets or escort cards or anything of that case, but it's all updated on the guest list in real time. The alerts go out to the key people who need to know that that update was made, all in real time. And anyone working inside VOW is seeing that in real time. So to your point about David Gass, one of the ways in which we differentiate is whenever you come into a piece of legacy event technology, and they are all legacy, you are being charged per access point. Whether you have 2 people on your team using it, 3 people on your team, you can have up to 350 people working in real time in VOW. Today, our guest lists are anywhere from 200 to 20,000 and everything in between. So we're built for scale. So you can have on your planning team, your core planning team, which might be 3 to 5 people across the foundation. And then you've got really an extension of those folks that come on closer to that help you ramp your activities up. So everybody can be in VOW in real time, in addition to catering, F&B, lighting, audio visual, all the wait staff. So like if I'm making table changes, I'm not then alerting the catering team or the venue to all these changes. They're actually seeing those changes happen in real time as well. If last minute F&B requests are coming in, if a speaker's moving from one table to the other, everything in VOW is real time. It's interconnected, and all the tools talk to each other with one click. Typically, when you're talking about a foundation and a gala, with which I'm extremely familiar, when you make a change in one place, you have to make a change in all the places.
Absolutely.
And this crescendos usually the day before, 2 days before, the morning of, when the sponsors are resubmitting list after list. That's not what happens in VOW. So I click on a table, I share it with a corporate sponsor. They're seating their guests inside the platform in real time. If I, as the organizer, have to make changes, they're very quickly alerted. The tickets are all updated. The guest list is in real time updated, and all the key people on your team know. And so it's very much a one-click experience. And that's really just where we are today. So, to the point of how we further disrupt, every time you come in and you do something inside VOW, as of right about now, you start to make the platform smarter. It's learning your workflows. It's able to co-pilot you. It's able to be responsive. It's able to understand that that foundation you're planning for mental health is a recurring experience, whether you're doing it 4 times a year in 4 cities, whether you're doing it every year. So it's learning your steps. It's learning what you're doing. And the next time you go to do stuff, it's actually co-piloting you and helping you move through your workflows faster. In addition to the fact that we're also training our models to be hands-free and keys-free. One of the challenges in being an event organizer is you are always in the field. And so if you're doing a good job anyway, and you're doing your job, you're leaving home. That's sort of the nature of what we do. But to really do the work of life as an event pro, you have to be often in front of a computer, or you're just pushing emails around. So being able to be in the field, hands-free, keys-free, talking to VOW, asking to push out invites, reminders, who's checked in, refresh RSVPs, add on an additional question, send something to the caterer, will let everybody have superpowers that they didn't have yesterday. And so where we are today is an all-in-one solution that really removes all the other steps, but it's really also where we're going tomorrow that we're asking our early customers to spend time, knowing that those workflows will get accelerated by leaps and bounds in the weeks and months ahead.
Okay,
That's
you're
amazing.
giving me gas. Just thinking about this, you didn't even know who was going to the Super Bowl until 2 weeks before, and the Unstoppable Foundation, in which Blaine and I both worked very diligently on the Unstoppable Foundation Gala. We would sit there 2 weeks before as Cynthia was panicking because only half of the tickets were sold. And that experience gave me gas. Now Wonder Techstars has backed you utilizing a revolutionary way to make humans more human. It's really the first comprehensive B2B to VIP platform that provides the dollars, the donations that are necessary in order to facilitate successful VIP driven events. And you started, by the way, before we bring Payal on, you started, by the way, in the most pressure baked event ever, which is probably why it's called VOW. But you started with wedding event planning. And not to quote Mr. T, but I pity the fool that tries to plan a wedding, and just being a part of it and having 3 daughters. Thank you so much, Jennifer Briesman, for giving me so much gas to help me with our live events. That's guest as a service, B2B to VIP. She's been doing it for years, the revolutionary and evolutionary platform that allows you and learns as you go to put on events live and deal with all the last minute changes just when the emotions are the highest. Count on Val to get you to where you want to be or better in the event planning space. Jennifer promised us she'll come back. Thank you so much. You're just too late to help me and Blaine, but we will definitely facilitate other introductions for people who have gas or need gas. Thanks again.
Thank you. Have a good one. Enjoy the holidays.
Thank you, Jennifer. Happy Thanksgiving.
All right. Our last guest is here. Payal is here. Kandwala, and he is the co-founder of Good morning,
Payal.
She is the founder and designer of the United Coalition, and we want to talk about understanding how this coalition is helping to assist everyone there as you move to New York. Welcome, Payal, to Office Hours.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Well, give us an idea of, as a designer at the coalition, the objective of the coalition, utilizing, I assume, apparel design in order to facilitate a unification that's much needed today in at least America, if not the whole world.
I think for us, in any case, it started as a really small idea because when I started the label, I've been painting my whole life. So this was not a planned jumping ship sort of career change. But when I moved back from New York, I lived there for many years, and I came back and I couldn't find clothes I wanted to wear. And even though it was such a pity because India is such the mothership of textiles and art, and always has been, but I always felt the clothes felt either too traditional or too much like a costume for people outside of the country, so that they only really tapped into that if they were dressing up to be someone else. And I thought that it really needed cementing, that sort of idea of using and tapping into all the things that we have access to here that we take for granted, but to be able to make the clothes a little more international so that people can respond to them in a way that they don't feel sort of out of sorts. Like, I know people will wear Indian clothes for Halloween maybe, or, outside of the country, maybe for a Diwali party or something very specific, or only when they come to weddings in India. But I really did feel that we could sort of unite that vision of the Indian craft and the textiles, but with clothes that had a more sort of international spirit, I guess. So I think that was important to me. Those were the kinds of clothes I wanted to wear.
Beautiful.
One of the things that I think stands out for me about what it is that you do and how you approach what you do is captured with the word beauty. And that word, beauty, if I go back to one of my favorite authors and philosophers, a fellow by the name of Thomas Troward, he speaks about beauty being the external expression of the internal life force. So that, what I'm apprehending, what I'm seeing, what I'm experiencing is the soul of whatever it is that's in front of me. Whether it's a tree or a computer screen or a human being that is draped in fabric in such a way that the beauty of who they are actually comes through. So with that and that definitely is my orientation around beauty. How do you work with beauty as a designer, and you are an award-winning designer, but how do you use beauty as kind of a North Star in the way that you design?
So I think that that's such a great question, because that's a sliding scale, and with every generation, the idea of beauty changes. From what we thought were beautiful women during the Renaissance, and then what happened in the 80s and the 90s, and now. And then for me, I really go with things that are more instinctive. I feel the brain processes things subliminally that we don't realize, color, information, symmetry, all of those things. So even if the world is telling you this is beautiful, your brain is, it's not listening necessarily just because that's trendy. It's already categorizing things, it's computing things on its own. And so for me, because I painted my whole life, I was an only child, I spent most of my time doing Lego and then painting. And because I'm familiar with color, and I spent all those years studying composition and negative space and positive, and all those things, the way you can cheat your brain, the way I make the clothes is very similar to the way that I paint. It's really just a shift in canvas for me. I don't really care about fashion, to be quite honest. I just think that if you make things beautiful, so that if I painted and it was 2-dimensional, and now I'm dealing with a human form and that's 3-dimensional, I'm still thinking of proportion and line, and how do you maximize whoever's wearing the clothes, how do you maximize their personality and their shape? Because everybody we know comes in all kinds of shapes, but we can always make, it's my job to cheat so that I can make you look better. And then it's that feeling. I think the thing about beauty is, if you feel beautiful, it it radiates, and people pick up on that subliminally. And I think clothes have the power. I know it doesn't change the world, they're clothes, it's just another pair of pants, but it can change your mood ever so slightly, and it makes you feel like the brightest person in the room because you threw that outfit on, and it gives you that sort of spring in your and I see how people's personalities change in a room, and I think that's kind of amazing. That to me is beauty. So I'm sort of quite traditional about what I think beautiful is. I just stick with that. Yeah.
Well, one,
Thank you.
making me look good, Blaine, is like asking Picasso to paint with crayons. It's a difficult thing. And one of the things that really resonated with me, Payal, is you mentioned space. I have this duality that creates my own united front between inside and outside. And as beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, space is so important because it is one of the two things that we can quantify in the realm of the infinite, meaning that time itself can be quantified. It's a dependent variable of our human experience. Everybody on Earth right now is watching the time go by in the exact same proportion. But space is also a quantifiable measurement, and it's much more difficult, which is why I study Einstein so much, to figure out this relational quantified value in the world of space, because it is man-made constructed here with things like apparel and art and music and other things that hold space. Most people don't realize that music isn't made by the notes, it's the space in between those notes that make the music.
Mhm.
I believe the same thing in beauty as well, with apparel and art. How can you describe to us, being someone who obviously understands space so well in art, the space that exists between the eyes of the beholder and the art itself?
I think this is such a great question because there's another side to it. And so, if we start from a very personal space, then there's also first the space between you and the clothes. You know, I think that's the most intimate space when you throw something on. For me, it's important that there is some space. I'm not a big fan of the clothes that make you feel like you can't breathe. I think it's not fair. I think it treats women harshly. We're sort of slaves to, let's not eat breakfast and let's skip this meal and that meal. And I don't think it's necessary, because none of that is important. When you throw something on, there's already a physical space between, which is just yours. And that mystery of that space is very important for women to feel sort of empowered almost, because it's not a struggle for them. If you leave a little bit of room around, that's the first step of space that for me is very personal. And then the second thing is, as you said, I mean, when I was painting, there was that, how do you communicate what you're thinking when you paint? And then that space between your artwork or the clothes and the person that's going to see it. And because I'm still quite traditional, I feel that journey is yours. And then once you view it, that journey becomes yours. So there's a sort of bridge in that space, but I don't think there's any real need to explain beyond a point too much what it is that I'm trying to say, because it's a visual language. If you listen to music, it communicates something to you. It might be different for Blaine, different for you, different for me, but it doesn't matter because it's already done its job. But if I have to read an entire explanation about what that artwork is or what that piece of music was about, it might or might not change your experience. And I feel that you can't interfere. So I think that space between that interaction between artwork or clothes, and they're similar in some ways, but they're quite different, because it's not a product still. When I'm making clothes, I'm very clear that it's a product. You have to be able to throw it on. You have to be comfortable in it. You should be able to take the subway, drive the car. A piece of artwork is quite different. It can be meditative. It can be provocative. It can be whatever the artist has chosen. But clothes have a very specific function, And so that response, because you're living in it, you're living in the clothes. So I feel with the clothes, that space sort of melts away. That's sort of, to me, the difference between the two.
I love that. And Payal, you have two advantages over Picasso as an artist, by the way. Number one, you didn't have to die to be famous and recognized and awarded. And two, I can see you absolutely can create beautiful designs with crayons. And it is the mindset, the heart set, and the handset of Payal Khandwala, who joins us on Thanksgiving. And we are so grateful, as she is the co-founder and designer of the United Coalition, bringing space and time to a unified front and with beauty. Thank you so much for giving us your time and space and room to share in the beautiful ideas and art that you are providing all of us for so many years. Congratulations on your great success. Go to global.payalkhandwala.com and you can see more about the United Coalition. We hope to have you back. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We're so grateful for everything you do.
Absolutely. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for having me.
Congrats.
Thank you, Payal.
All right, we're going to have a competition to see who can make Dave Meltzer look best. I think Payal will win. But nonetheless, it's easy to be grateful on Thanksgiving. It's not easy to be grateful every single day, because the simple things to do are simple not to do. And one of the simple things to do here on Office Hours at episode 664 is our takeaway of Thanksgiving, our takeaway of the day. Mr. Double B, that's Blaine Bartlett at Blaine Bartlett. What is your takeaway for our Thanksgiving edition of Office Hours?
I'm going to go with something that I said at the beginning of the interviews, plural, and it has to do with the nature of a conversation. And I can never have a conversation with anybody or anything unless I'm aware of its presence. And then the tone and tenor of that conversation, this is where design comes in. And I loved Payal's notion of I live inside my clothes. Okay. So I'm fond of saying, do the clothes wear you or do you wear the clothes? Yeah. When we're looking at it from a leadership presence perspective and that sort of thing. So you put on a role. Does the role wear you or do you wear the role? And all of this kind of comes into play here with all three of our guests today. when we find ourselves, we find God, which is, I think, absolutely profound when we were looking with Shay's commentary, just dancing. And art is about dancing. And movement is about dancing, whether we're in a conversation, in a event situation where we're trying to keep all the pieces together and create this bespoke experience that lights people up. And this is where beauty comes in. And at the end of the day, I'm going to come back to this notion of conversation, David. Conversations that are beautiful are conversations that are connected. We're connecting with something other than ourselves per se. And that's what I want to be able to do, is connect in a way that's beautiful.
It's so beautiful. And that conversation requires a duality. And for myself, the takeaway that was, resonating with me strongly was the necessity of that duality, that conversation, that dance, the space and time that exists in the duality between your clothing and yourself, and your beauty and others. And whether it was Shay, who obviously as a Christian mystic utilizes the dance, the duality, in order to facilitate the unified, abundant, infinite system of thought, this unification, this oneness of faith that we have, or whether Jennifer, when she started that app, it was with vow. It was the ultimate duality of marriage. And if anything signifies oneness, it would have to be matrimony, as that is stated as a commitment, a social contract that exists throughout human nature, that we together create one, and then we create others from that oneness, just like energy aggregates, accelerates, and compounds exponentially upon itself. As a parent, hopefully not too exponential. 4 kids is enough.
Hopefully not too much.
4 kids is enough. And it definitely was enough for my wife to create those 4 kids. Anyway, that finally, I think, more relevant to the United Coalition is to understand the duality of art, and the oneness that it creates through beauty and the beholder. And that perception and participation in that perception is critical in this life journey, this human experience that creates a duality within the oneness. And it's a quest in which you have been mentoring and coaching me and teaching me on for many, many years. And I just want to tell you, thank you so much for elevating my awareness to all of these great things that I get to pursue in my life, and all the great things that have come in my life, including you, your wife, your family. The foundation, the Unstoppable Foundation, has all been a blessing of perception and the duality that has created a oneness to serve. And including the book behind you that you and I as a duality created right there. And Compassionate Capitalism is about that oneness. Blaine Bartlett, if you can't tell, I'm overflowing with love, joy, happiness, and appreciation for our conversation and our relationship. Then let me state it clearly. I love you, my friend. God bless you.
Reciprocated, buddy. Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're my brother.
Awesome. Well, enjoy your day with your family. Thanks for waking up early. We're on the West Coast, and Blaine Bartlett got up, beat me to the punch. I was a minute late. And one thing Blaine has not been able to help me with is my extreme OCD with time. And then I decided I'd study time in order to facilitate getting rid of my unbelievable. If you're 5 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late in my book. Maybe that's from all the sports that I played as a young person. But nonetheless, we're running out of time on episode 664. It is Thanksgiving, and I want to please encourage you to say thank you before you go to bed and when you wake up. Have a gratitude list, a journal, get into a practice, create a skill of gratitude, because saying thank you is easy. It takes 0.1 seconds and it's free. It still will have an incredible impact and exponential outcome in where you want to be or better. But the simple things to do are unfortunately simple not to do. Please, everyone, enjoy your holiday. We'll be in DC next week with the Aspire Tour with David Goggins, Mark Leon, me, Eddie Wilson, Danny Fleischman, Tim Story, many more. Then I'll be in San Antonio keynoting the Carnegie International Convention down there in San Antonio. Then I go to DC again. We'll be doing a meetup, then to London, then to Egypt, then back to SoFi Stadium for our last mastermind of the year on December 17th. So invitations, not obligations. We'll be supporting the Unstoppable Foundation on a travel. If you want to be alerted next year of over 200 cities that we are in, all you got to do is text our community, because that's how I'm alerted that I had a show today. And it reminded me as I was working out that I was a little bit late. Oh, there's the OCD again. 949-298-2905. Text me or email me, david@dmeltzer.com. Once again, everyone, happy Thanksgiving. Be more interested than interesting. Be kind to your future self. Do good deeds. God bless everybody. Have a great day.